the sports director over at WFB. Our friend Jacques Doucet joins us live here this morning.
Well, I just remember, NFL films and that
Yes.
guy, talking, autumn leads way to winter. The frozen tundra of Lambeau Field, Green Bay, Wisconsin. Yeah, I mean that's the one good thing about going to Tuscaloosa, I guess. You kind of see it's always in November, early November. You got the fall leaves, and being on a college campus in the fall is pretty cool. Too bad. I think I've been to Tuscaloosa 11 times for football. They've only won 4 of them, I think. I went in 1997 when Kevin Falk ran all over them, and LSU won 27-0. They won in 2007. That was Les Miles' first time playing Nick Saban head-to-head. They won in 11 on the 9-6 game, and they won in 19, of course, with Joe Burrow and company. All the other times they've come up short, including this one. So it is kind of unfortunate that LSU has 3 football games left. We talk about football all year. We can't wait for the season to start, and they only play 12 games in the regular season. There's 3 left, and I'm afraid the games themselves have become an afterthought or a second page to the search for a new head coach and what's going on with the old head coach. So that's where we're at.
And we'll start it off with football. We'll ask you about Saturday. I thought LSU came out there, especially defensively, played inspired. You saw some energy, a good response in the second half from that side of the football, but those offensive issues just continued and continued and continued, regardless of who was at quarterback, because they made the change that a lot of people were calling for since earlier in the season and put Van Buren in. What were some of your takeaways from the performance as well as the decision to go with MVB as opposed to Nussmeier in the second half?
Well, I thought Frank Wilson got the team to play hard. We were hearing that leading into the game that they thought that the team would maybe give a better effort for him than they did for Brian Kelly. At the same time, he can't wave a magic wand and fix all the problems that have been hurting this team all year long. And this team has been weighed down by their lack of offense. As you said, defense made a very nice play on the 4th down to start the game. But LSU, when they get in the red zone, continues to not be able to score touchdowns. We were joking that the burn timeout should get a sponsor every week. Be like, this first quarter burn timeout brought to you by Trash Rangers. Another wasted timeout. Something like that.
2 in the first quarter.
We need Russell Shepard's as portal potty company.
Porta potties, yeah.
Because
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Not to get too graphic, but I interviewed Russell about that. I said, "How's that business, man?" He goes, "Well, JD, somebody told me people are going to be pooping and peeing as long as they're on the face of the earth. You'll always have a business." I'm like, "Yeah, I guess you're right." So
it's like the Seinfeld, like there's always the mail.
Yeah, Russell's done well for himself over there in Houston, but yeah, I mean, Damian Ramos is LSU's all-time leading scorer now, but he yanked a 30-yarder there, and like an LSU fan told me, what's the worst words an LSU fan can hear? First and goal. I mean, how can a team go from first and goal at the 9 to kicking a 44-yard field goal? I mean, that's pretty creative. So, they made the change finally. I think a lot of fans have been calling for a change. I thought Van Buren, when he got in, I don't want to say he was nervous because I don't know, but it was just, that one drive where I guess it was a combination kind of some bad luck and some jitters where he's just a little off. Like even the completion of Xavier Thomas across the middle was not a tremendously thrown ball. Then the one to Kyle Parker on the sideline is just a little inaccurate. They review it and they take it away, and then he scrambles. Looks like he has a first down on a slide. They take a look at that. They bring it back. Then LSU jumps off sides, and they have to punt. So I thought that he cleared up a lot of defensive congestion to an extent with his ability to scramble and run. He did throw some nice passes, although I think he completed less than 50%. He did fumble, and I think LSU only scored 3 points on his 4 possessions. So he did do some good things. He does do some things better than Garrett. I'm just dumbfounded and just astonished by looking at Garrett Nussmeier's statistics from a year ago to this year. I mean, I had a feeling, but then I looked at it. You realize he's throwing for 100 yards per game less this year pretty much than he did a year ago. He threw 29 touchdowns a year ago. He's got 12 this year. He had 8 300-yard passing games, 2 400-yard passing games a year ago. He's got neither this year. I thought it was not a shoe-in, but I thought he was going to catch Tommy Hudson as LSU's all-time leading passer. I think he had to average, 282 yards a game or something, and he's not even come close to catching Hudson. Hudson's safe with 9,100 yards as LSU's all-time leading passer. So that's a lot of stats and talk, but the same old problems: pre-snap penalties, lack of consistent ability, to run the football. The wide receiving core has kind of been a possession wide receiving group. There just hasn't been that big breakaway play that's happened very often. And, defensively, it was a better matchup with Ty Simpson than it was with Diego Pavia or Marcel Reed or some of these quarterbacks that have given LSU trouble scrambling. But at the end of the day, it's still a loss, and it's your 4th loss in 5 games in a season that's been a lost season. I don't want to get caught up in hyperbole and all that, but I've covered a lot of LSU seasons. I have been spoiled as a media guy when I've had a chance to cover, but this might be my least favorite season. I mean, maybe the COVID year in 2020, but even the victories have been kind of exhausting and not fun when you look back at how they beat Florida and South Carolina, all the off-the-field stuff going on with the firing of the coach and everything. It just hasn't been a whole lot of fun.
And that's what I was going to get at with you, because you've obviously covered LSU for quite some time, and you've seen every season that you could possibly see, and every LSU does not lack for surprises. But do you think that there's ever been an LSU season like this with the expectation? Obviously, the eras have changed when you have NIL, transfer portal. You have a $100 million man as your head coach. He's guaranteeing national championships before the year, and now you're fundamentally broken. You have things playing out very publicly in the media. You have a head coach that's fired. You have a quarterback that is also fundamentally broken. And I just would, if you could compare it to, I guess, expectations going into a season that wasn't the 2025 LSU football season, if there's a year that compares anything close to this one.
Yeah, Lloyd, I don't know of anything that compares. Like, as a kid in 1986, Bill Arnsparger was the head coach. He went to go visit with Florida in the middle of fall camp. He eventually left LSU at the end of the year to take the AD job there, and the athletic director at the time, Bob Broadhead, was fired in the middle of the season. That was the whole crazy days at LSU. For people who lived through that, they tell me that is tame and nothing compared to what's happened this year. There have certainly been seasons where, like in 1989, LSU was a preseason top 10 team. They went 4-7. 1998, Kevin Falk's senior year, they were preseason top 10. I think they went 4-7. So there have been years in the past where the expectations were high and they didn't do well. But nothing like the combination of major events that has taken place, from I told people all the time that would come up to me, they're going to fire Brian Kelly. No way. They owe, the buyout's too much. They certainly wouldn't do it in the middle of the year. Well, that happened. Then you've got a press conference about food stamps, and our governor just publicly blasts the athletic director and says he's not going to make the hire on the next head football coach. The athletic director, whose track record, is not all that bad at LSU, is just abruptly fired in the middle of the football season. You've got an AD who's ping-ponging back and forth from interim to, full-time. What's the deal with that? An 8 a.m. press conference on Halloween. And now, to your coach, who I'm pretty sure you guys saw him. He was not on the sideline in Tuscaloosa, and Frank Wilson's been doing press conferences yet. Apparently he was just fired Monday.
Right.
So it's kind of bizarre, and I don't know if LSU jumped out of an airplane and didn't have their parachute in terms of, not being able to pay Coach Kelly. I've been hearing from day one since they fired him, they had no intent on paying the $53 million, and there were going to be avenues to not paying the $53 million that they were going to play. And, over the years, I've seen a lot of coaches fired at LSU, and, they've been quiet breakups, so to speak. There's a big loud, the coach is fired, and then people go away. That obviously is not going on here, and so I think everyone is hoping that they settle quickly so we can kind of move forward with a new beginning at LSU.
Yeah, and you bringing up the point of settling quickly. That's my main feel for, my main desire. I don't care really what money gets paid, what doesn't get, just get it over with soon, because if it continues to drag out, the fear is just like that it'll just be this dark cloud that sits over LSU through this coaching hiring process and everything that kind of lies ahead, right?
Yeah, I don't think the average fan cares whatever Brian Kelly's payout is. They know that it's not like, well, the buyout went to this, so we're going to charge you even more on your season tickets next year or whatever.
Anyway.
Yeah, the season tickets have already gone up, so. And I think that's what some people thought was disingenuous about the whole, talking about taxpayers paying for the buyouts. It's not like you go to the grocery store and they throw, 4% tax to pay off for the LSU football coach or the gas station or whatever,
I would gladly do that.
You would do it?
I know where it's going. The roads aren't getting fixed.
Yeah, well.
I don't need to fly in Omar the Tiger. I need to fire Brian Kelly.
First world problems, guys, but they need to fix Ben-Hur off of River Road, close to where I live. It's been out for what's the old lady in the Titanic? It's been 84 years.
I've been hurt before.
Like. So, but yeah, I don't think people really care about what the buyout is and all that. But the news cycles, I sat down, we were in the office yesterday, and they ran a big segment with Peter Burns talking about this food fight with Brian Kelly and LSU and how that would affect hiring the next head coach and all of that. So I it's just the whole. It's kind of like, you remember when for whatever reason at the end of 2015 LSU decided to leak to the media that Les Miles is on the hot seat and he might get fired. And for 2 weeks, LSU got put through this negative news cycle where everyone was wondering if he's going to get fired or not. And it was just totally unnecessary. And, I think we talked about it last week. Remember when they fired Joe Oliva and they brought aboard Scott Woodward, how clean and precise and quiet that all was done. And it was like a couple of emails and bang, 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 here we are, It wasn't this public deal on TV. And so, yeah, I think that LSU fans certainly are anxious about this. I joked with somebody yesterday. Every time LSU hires a new coach, it's kind of like a presidential election. This is the most important of our lifetime. We've got to get this right. But I do think LSU's at a crossroads again, and they need to find the right guy and need to move forward and get LSU back to where they need to be, because they clearly missed on the last guy. And I don't want to pile on. I enjoyed covering Brian Kelly. I thought he treated us pretty well. But, I'm thinking about coaches in my lifetime. I really think that Brian Kelly is going to be less revered and less positively remembered than a lot of coaches at LSU who won less games than him, just for this going on and his lack of interaction with fans, his lack of interest in Louisiana, the lack of human relationships that were developed. I just wonder how he's going to be remembered in LSU's history. I'm having a hard time, thinking of him standing on the field one day, getting introduced, waving at the crowd, and getting a lot of cheers. I just doesn't feel like it right now, but we'll see.
Well, that's where I'm kind of interested in how this dynamic between LSU and Brian Kelly is going to play out, because the least surprising thing I would imagine is that Brian Kelly is actually fighting for this, because he has no real tie to the university aside from he was hired to be the football coach. But I'm not shocked that if there was one person I would pick that would publicly get into a public spat with LSU and actually fight and sue the university, they can't be surprised that Brian Kelly's doing this, because that's who he is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and obviously, I don't think I'm breaking any news that it appears that LSU is threatening. It was so funny yesterday how things work out. I was joking about the Don Henley song "Dirty Laundry," and sure enough, I go to the gym and they play it yesterday. I'm like, God has a sense of humor, there it is. Come and whisper in my ear, give me dirty laundry. And so does he care to an extent? Like, all right, you got that? Well, air it. I don't care, type thing. Are they threatening, hey, we don't want to put this out, coach? And I think I heard Greg Bowser making a good point yesterday. He was fired because he didn't win enough games. He wasn't fired because of X, Y, and Z that they've got on the file, and, observing him in the last 3.5 years and some things he's done away from football. So I think that's going to be very interesting how they try to execute that and how they try to bring this number down, because obviously I think that, the number right off that you would hear on Sunday when they fired him was, we cut him in half, 27 million, 28 million. That's what we're going to do. And so, we'll see about all that, but these are not things that gravitate, Lloyd or Noah, or Jacques, the reasons why we, got into LSU football is because it made us feel good, and we enjoyed, like in my case, the earthquake game in '88, Hodgson throwing the pass to Fuller, or going to the Bring Back the Magic game in 1995 when Troy Twilley intercepts the pass to end the game, or Kevin Falk on the front cover of Sports Illustrated, LSU beats Florida in Tiger Stadium 1997, tears down the goalpost. These were the things that made me love LSU football and covering it and all that, and all of this stuff going on is not something that a dad is sitting on the couch with his son and saying, "Look at this, son, isn't this great?" It's not what people like about LSU football. It's real world stuff, but I know everyone's kind of hoping it goes away. Let's get a coach, let's get a staff, let's get a roster, let's move forward.
Yeah, and speaking of coach, did you see who the betting favorite is to be LSU's next head football coach?
I did. He walked right past us in the press box in Tuscaloosa on Saturday wearing a red crimson red zip up, and I think he was there with Miss Terry, of course, and he told hello to Scott Rabelais. He didn't see me. I don't think he'd have anything to say to me. Even if he did see me, he'd probably be like, "Oh yeah, you. I remember you. Okay, so
you found my parking spot here too."
Yeah, exactly. Where'd you park today? Yeah. Boy, my people sometimes say, "Yeah, well, didn't you cover Nick Saban?" I said, I don't think I could describe what I did covering Nick Saban. More like getting chewed up and spit out on a regular basis. It was like, thank God Twitter and Facebook wasn't around. I probably would have jumped off the bridge with anxiety and stress. I remember some of my family members being like, "Oh, we love it when he yells at y'all and chews you up and spits you out." Like, I really appreciate that. Thank you. So everyone loved it
in my life.
Yeah, I got plenty of Nick Saban stories from back in the day, but he just changed everything here. He was this good-looking guy that he strolled in. The women all loved him, and he just shouted that they just loved to see him go on these tangents, shout and yell at people, and throw his headset and get emotional. And he's the one guy that could, if he came back, say, hey, we're doing things my way. I'm not getting influenced by politics and this and that. I see the odds are 2-1. I have not heard a whole lot out there about who the next head coach is going to be. LSU, to their credit, I don't think that there's a whole lot of people talking, and I don't know if they're even close to naming a head coach. Obviously, Brian Kelly wasn't hired until a few days after the regular season finale in 2021. But I just don't know at 74 years old if if you get back in the ring, you got to get back in the ring full gusto. And I just don't know if that's the case with him, or if he looks at it and he says, I've always liked challenges. LSU is at an impasse. I was here 25 years ago. We won a national championship. I'm going to give it one more go, and that would be amazing to cover, and I'd be on the front row and would love to see it. It feels like it's not realistic, but here's something I thought of. When you guys were working with Jordy and Kim Mulkey came on the show, and Jordy said, hey, would you ever come back to LSU? And she said, oh, well, I don't know. I don't think so. Timing is everything. I mean, I had people texting me, there is a 0.005 chance Kim Mulkey leaves Baylor to come to LSU. Never going to happen, and it did. And this kind of feels a little similar to that. I know it's a much, much bigger thing, a football coach at LSU to a women's basketball coach, but it is a lesson in never say never. And so it feels like it's too good to be true. Maybe it feels like maybe an Eli Drinkwitz or a John Summerall or somebody like that might be more realistic. That Kiffin is a pretty big white whale too that LSU might be chasing in terms of the guy to get. But it is funny how these things play out later on when you look back. I mean, Tom Herman was just, oh my God, you had to have Tom Herman, this genius, and I think he got I think he got fired from Florida Atlantic last year after 2 seasons, and he's out of football at the moment, if I'm not mistaken. But, Kiffin has proven he's got some stability now at Ole Miss, and I don't care if he gets on Twitter and makes fun of people and has some fun, and it is a little juvenile, if you want to say that. But, yeah, that's a lot of rambling. But, yeah, it is very interesting that Saban is at the top of the list, not just like mentioned. He's at the very top, and But these lists, too, though, it's got Joe Brady pretty high. And, Joe Brady spent 1 year in college football,
right,
if I'm not mistaken, and he doesn't want to coach college football. Everything you hear, he wants to coach football. He wants to go in a building and draw up plays, and he's not interested in fundraising and recruiting and all those things, everything you hear anyway. So Joe Brady's always been a fascinating topic. I never want to shortchange him for anything he ever did at LSU. And obviously, he played a major, major role in LSU's success. But, it's funny. There's a group of people that are like 35 and under who they're the ones that wear like the play neck T-shirts and the STDDB T-shirts and all that they just think Joe Brady invented football. I mean, they just think that. Why would they not hire him to be the head coach at LSU? And it's just I don't think he's interested, and he's up 3-1 odds or something, right? He's like second or third on the list.
I mean, if he wasn't interested in 2020, I don't think he would be interested in the new age 2025 college football.
He's got a pretty sweet gig, JD.
yeah, I think he wants to coach
exactly
pro football.
Exactly what he wants to do.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to go down as one of the most interesting people in LSU history. That he came in for 1 year. I remember when they asked Sean Payton about him, and Sean Payton is like, well, he's a guy that we would talk to occasionally for a blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was almost sounding like he was a guy that was getting coffee for the Saints, And then I think when they hired him, he was 28, maybe 27, 28. But then, yeah, he brought along the offense, and, Insminger called the plays, I think outside of did Brady call third down plays or something like that? But, yeah, I mean, I don't want to shortchange the guy. He's obviously had a great career. But then sometimes I wonder, Lloyd, if you had Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, right, you might score some touchdown calling plays too.
It wasn't the most difficult job in the world, but it was nice to see. It is funny when you mentioned like the Joe Brady era, I guess if you want to call it that, if he's even long enough to be one. It was just such the transition, right, from what LSU football had always been to what it became, this flash in the pan, as it were, in 2019. And I think there's like one person you can point to that was never here that was there, and it's like, oh, he did it. And so everybody now it's this, it's almost folklore.
Well, and look, once again, I don't want to shortchange him.
Me either.
He did a great. I just sometimes it's overblown. It's just a little too much sometimes. And but look, in 2018 they played Alabama in Tiger Stadium. They didn't score a single point. They were shut out 29-0. The next year they go on the road with the same personnel basically, and what they score was it 48 points, 45 against Alabama in Tuscaloosa the next year, and they could have scored more. So kudos to everybody who was part of that and that dream team season that we'll all never forget. And we've been chasing that year ever since. I don't think we'll ever see anything like it ever again, but hopefully LSU's back. We'll win another national championship in the next 5 years or so.
It doesn't seem like they're going down that path. But with that in mind, that's my last one for you. Would you take a 3 years, if that, of Nick Saban, 4 years, maybe 3? Or would you sacrifice that to have maybe 10 years of Lane Kiffin if that became the decision-making process?
Oh, wow. That's a hell of a question, Lloyd.
I know Nick doesn't like to deal in hypotheticals.
Yeah. I mean, I've already got it written in my head, the track. It's like, after breaking LSU's hearts and building a dynasty at the University of Alabama, Nick Saban returned to Baton Rouge for one last go and led the Tigers to the 2028 National Championship before retiring for good. That would be amazing. But I mean, you can see Kiffin on the sidelines wearing a purple hoodie, pumping his fist in Tiger Stadium, scoring touchdowns, scoring points. I mean, and his cockiness and his kind of it just really appeals to a large group of us that watch and love LSU football. I think it'd be just what the doctor ordered. Now, look, he coached at Tennessee. He did have a quote unquote huge SEC job for a year, and he left. How would he handle? There'd be a lot more pressure here than at Ole Miss. A lot more pressure at Florida than there would be at Ole Miss. How would he handle if things don't go well and they lose a couple of games and, people start grumbling and everything? But, I think, just for this, damn it, Lloyd, the choice between those two, the fact that I covered or I was around Saban, and I think Nick Saban is the most fascinating person that maybe I've ever covered, for the simple fact of there's been nobody that people around here talk about more since he left than Nick Saban. I mean, he's always been a conversation. I mean, people that don't even know anything about football can talk about Nick Saban. And so I think I'd take 3 years of covering Nick Saban one last time at the end of his career than Kiffin. But that's kind of like asking me, would I like a 12-ounce ribeye or a rack of ribs? I mean, either one I'd eat up and love to cover. So
I agree. It would be a beautiful storyline for sure. We appreciate you, JD, for making some time for us, and we'll talk to you again.
I'm not taking the job, all right? I'm staying home, all right? I got a TV job now. Not interested, okay? All right, good visiting with you guys. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, JD.
Okay, thanks.
There he is, Jacques Doucet.